Namaste and pranam to all. It's a very nice occasion that all the distinguished people are gathered at the same place virtually. It is a great honor for the NCCSD to welcome all our dignitaries in this occasion. We begin our program with the Ganesh Vandana. May I kindly request to all join with us in the Ganesh Vandana.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकारेषु सर्वदा.
Thank you so much. On behalf of NCCSD, I welcome you all in the book release of the Atmanirbhar Self-Reliant and Climate Smart Farmers Roadmap for Agriculture 2020-2030 India. It's a matter of pride that we have with us our Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, for the release of this book. Sir, on behalf of all of us, I warmly welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
An honor and privilege that VP Singh, our editors, Dr. Kirit Chalat, Dr. Embuya, Dr. Pathak, and Dr. Acharya with us. I warmly welcome to you all, sir. Not only that, but our supporters and the authors, Dr. Amarjit Sinha, advisor to Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Govind Hariharan from USA, Shri Ashwin Bhai, Shri Ashish Shah, Dr. Manish Bhardwaj, Principal Secretary Agriculture, Government of Gujarat, Dr. R.V. Vyas, Dr. H.V. Chovatia, Dr. Richard from Africa, and others from India and other countries are with us today. Today, Shreyash Bhai, our publishers are with us. All of you have been instrumental and have your hands in the developing agriculture sector and climate smart farmers, sir. We are encouraged by P.K. Mishra, Principal Secretary to Honorable Prime Minister, for finding the time and writing the foreword for the book. Our publishers, Shri Shreyash Bhai, today with us, we're thankful to him. A warm welcome to everyone for this book release function. Our Honorable Prime Minister called for the self-reliant India as a clear vision of the rural and agriculture sector. This book is Atmanirbhar, in which about 26 experts from the variety of the disciplines have made contributions, and being present in this occasion today, it's giving us the strength. Books lay out a roadmap for the Indian agriculture sector. This book offers how to be self-reliant and climate smart farmers. We are sure that all of us, means all the stakeholders, are welcome to everyone who are with us today. On these auspicious occasions, we like to honor Honorable Vice Chairman Dr. Rajiv Kumar on behalf of all of us. I request Shri Brajesh Bhai Shalat to welcome our Vice Chairman Dr. Rajiv Kumar with bouquet. I request all to clap virtually.
Okay. Thank you. You've done that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Now I request Honorable Justice VP Singh for his address. Sir, VP Singh, sir.
Friends, I'm glad to be with all of you, even though from a distance, because the situation does not permit us to meet and to talk to each other. All the same, on this occasion, let me welcome all of you. And I would like to say something about how our society, our NCCSD, has been greatly associated with the entire movement on the agrarian front in this country. In the new millennium, the world is facing the challenge of climate change with increasing unpredictable weather conditions and its intense adverse impact on the habitat. The cause of climate change is obviously global warming, increased greenhouse gases, although global warming is an international phenomenon, its adverse impacts are local in nature and are felt at the local levels. Those severely affected are the villages, the farmland, and the farmers. This also creates the challenge to food security. NCCSD initiated its mission by organizing think tank meets for policy formulations and capacity building training programs for farmers and the youth. The focus was to prepare administration and farmers to meet the challenges of climate change. FAO also liked the idea and it created a special purpose organization called GACSA, Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. At the national level, NICRA, National Institute for Climate Resilient Agriculture, was initiated by ICAR. NCCSD took up capacity building on its part and developed a guidebook for farmers for developing climate resilient agriculture. In 2014, NCCSD initiated the scheme for technology transfer with Florida A&M University, FAMU, USA, for building climate smart farmers. USA helped FAMU to send US scientists to train our farmers. NCCSD has brought out a book for farmers on building climate smart farmers, a guidebook for doubling income of farmers in arena of climate change. This book is authored by Dr. K.N. Shellett and co-authored by Dr. Odemari Mibuya from Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University, FAMU, USA. This book is in response to the call given by the Honorable Prime Minister for doubling the income of farmers. The Gujarat government made available this guidebook to all villages in the state as a part of Krishi Mahotsav 2018. The Hindi and English versions are made available at national level to all states for use of their farmers. In response to the call given by the Honorable Prime Minister of India for Atmanirbhar Bharat, NCCSD has worked on guidebook Atmanirbhar Krishi, role of stakeholders. It is organizing as a follow-up series seminars on Atmanirbhar farmers. Through WebAir and is also outcome of series of think tank meets on roadmap for 2020-2030. We are delighted and encouraged by the presence of our Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who has agreed to release the book. Professor Ramesh Chand, member NITI Aayog, has been associated with us. And in fact, we held a seminar under his chairmanship on February 4, 2020 on this subject. May I now request our chief guest, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman NITI Aayog, to release the book.
Dr. VP Singh. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations. Let's clap.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv Kumar.
My pleasure, sir.
I assure you that our society will be of immense cooperation, will give immense cooperation in any field in agriculture, because we are primarily concerned with in not merely environment, but its adverse effect on the habitat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rajiv Kumar is the Vice Chairman of the NITI Aayog in the rank and status of the Cabinet Minister. He also serves as the Vice Chancellor to Gokhale Institute of the Politics and Economics, Pune. His early years stint in the government was initially with the Ministry of Industry and subsequently in the Ministry of Finance as an economist advisor during the reforms years of the 1991 to 1994. He also serves as the independent director on the Central Board of the Reserve Bank of India and the State Bank of India. He has a wide experience of having the work with the government, academia, industry, association, as well as the international finance institutions. Dr. Rajiv Kumar has the PhD in the economics from the Lucknow University, India, and the doctorate in MPhil from the Oxford University, UK. Sir, we are very lucky today you are with us and you raised the book. Now I request to Sir Rajiv Kumar sir for his address. Sir.
Thank you very much, Mishaji. Justice BP Singh, President of NCCSD, Dr. Shelat, Dr. Hariharan, all the eminences gathered here for this launch. Good afternoon to you all. Namaskar. I thank NCCSD for the honor they have given me for inviting me to speak at the launch of this very important volume edited by the four editors led by Dr. Shah on Atmanirbhar, self-reliant and climate smart farmers. I congratulate Dr. Shelat and NCCSD for bringing out a timely volume because agriculture is in the news, not the best news these days, but the fact is that Indian agriculture remains one of the most important pillars of the Indian economy. It's also a sector which needs a lot of attention. It's a sector which needs a lot of attention because, unfortunately, Indian agriculture, despite all our efforts and despite the very important, very fundamental contribution of the Indian farmers to convert India from a food scarce economy to a food surplus economy, despite all of that, I'm sort of sorry to say, but I mean, I must admit that Indian agriculture remains a backward sector in our country, with about 50% of our workforce employed in agriculture, and some estimates go beyond that. The sector produces only 18% of the GDP. So you can imagine the difference in productivity in the remaining sectors and in Indian agriculture. 50% of our people working in this area producing only 18% of the GDP. And as Dr. Ramesh Chand has pointed out in his article just yesterday in the Hindu, the difference, the gap between incomes of urban in India and that of agricultural India continues to widen. It's 1,46,000 rupees for the urban sector, and it's, I think, nearly 70,000, or so for the agricultural sector. Now, so I think this is unsustainable. Our country will retain, I'm a firm believer, and I've therefore given a lot of time to agriculture since I joined Niti Aayog 3 years ago, that we will not be self-reliant until our agricultural sector is modernized, until our agriculture achieves global competitiveness, and unless, as our Honorable Prime Minister has said, our farmers double their income or even go beyond that. The farmers, the state in which they live, the great majority of the farmers, I do not think India would become self-reliant, or actually, in some sense, will not complete its economic transition unless we modernize the sector and really make sure that the Indian farmers can walk shoulder to shoulder with their urban counterparts in the manufacturing and the services sector. And we have to think through that. But at the same time, I think it's very important to focus on the smart climate, friendly agriculture, as this volume seeks to do, because the intergovernment, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Commission on Climate Change, has pointed out that climate change can bring about a 10 to 25% decline in yields in the coming years up to 2050. Now that will be disastrous for us because those if we can't if we can't escape that, if we can't prevent that, then India's food security will be threatened. And and the fact remains that if the yields decline and our demand will continue to grow up, a Niti Aayog report of 2018 estimates that our food grain demand itself will be 337 million tons by 2040. Now, how will we meet that if we don't take up the challenge of climate change and take up the mitigating factors, take up the adaptive measures for making our agriculture climate resilient, as it were? Now, the fact is also that Indian agriculture at the moment, again, quite unfortunately, is not giving enough attention to environment or to agroecology. The fact is that 60% of our irrigation is done through groundwater. There is massive overexploitation of groundwater. Remember the scenes from Gujarat 30 years ago, when there were water trains going to Gujarat. Today the same situation will arise in very large parts of the country if we continue to the way that we are doing. More than 1,500 villages in the Punjab have pretty much run out of groundwater, and their groundwater is now contaminated with arsenic and fluoride and so on. Niti Aayog produced a report 2 years ago which says that there is a water emergency faced in the country. We don't take that seriously enough because we know that 91% of the groundwater in India, 91% of all water in India, all water is used in agriculture. Now, that's something which is completely unsustainable. We have to change that. We have to change our practices as we go forward. We also know that our agriculture is also a major emitter of methane and carbon and greenhouse gases. We need to change that. Our cattle population is way beyond what our needs are in many ways, and we continue to use chemical fertilizers and chemical inputs of weedicide and pesticide in a totally imbalanced manner. We continue to dump these chemicals into our land so that the soil, the quality of the soil is getting spoiled. The organic carbon content of Indian soil is depleting at an amazingly, frightening rate wherever you go because of the use of these chemicals. And if we continue to do this, large part of our soils will become semi-arid or unarable because the marginal return on chemicals is declining. It's surely declining. Studies after studies have shown from all agricultural universities that the imbalanced use of urea, the imbalanced use of nutrients are converting our arable land into non-arable land at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I am saying all of this to really emphasize and to sound a warning that Indian agriculture is not in a good state today. Although we have 70 million tons of food grain stock, we have exportable sugar. The fact is that we are in a situation where our increasing stocks of food grains neither be consumed within the country because those demands are going down and Indian demand for agricultural production is getting diversified, nor can we export them without subsidy. And when we export sugar with taxpayer subsidy, we are actually exporting water from this country, given the water intensity of the sugarcane crop, which of all places is grown in Maharashtra, which is a water scarce area. And we are exporting paddy, which is of all places grown in the Punjab, with groundwater use and flood irrigation systems. We are actually exporting water in a situation where our share of fresh water is 4% of the world water situation, while our population is 16%. It is just unsustainable. We have to rethink Indian agriculture completely from sui generis, from restart. We have to rethink Indian agriculture. And I think Dr. Shelat's book, I'm sure, will lead us into that direction, will encourage us, will force us, hopefully, to look at Indian agriculture, ab initio, so that, because as I said, and I want to repeat myself, Indian agriculture is not in a good situation today. Indian agriculture is unable to either meet the demand of its domestic consumers, which are diversifying into vegetables and crops and proteins, etc. And Indian agriculture cropping patterns is not agroclimatically friendly the way we are going at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I have said all of this because what is the way forward for this? And and as is well known, we have to improve our yields. So land and labor productivity are the two ways forward. I mean, that's the way forward, and everybody talks about that. And third is to make agriculture less consumptive of natural resources, whether it is water or it's land and so on. How do we go forward? Now, land, as far as land is concerned, 1970-71, our per capita holding of land was 2.3 hectares. Today it has declined to 1.08 hectares. The land, availability of land is shrinking for our agriculture. 86% of our farmers have land holdings of less than 1.2 hectares, I think. So therefore, what's the way? And I cannot see India adopting the North American model of consolidated land, or even the European model, because our farmers are emotionally attached to those pieces of land. So maybe what we should be trying today is a much bigger experiment of creating farmers, producers, organizations, where farmers will come together, where agripreneurs with a social conscience will bring farmers together so they can get rid of their boundaries and they can pool in their land as equity and become large-scale holdings in which each farmer has an equity in terms of the share of the land that is given, and then increases its value addition from the farm. So that's one way forward. The second way forward, again, to talk about, this is that, the other way to improve yields was to increase the amount of inputs that you give, the chemicals, the fertilizers, the weedicides, the pesticides. I think we are coming to the end of that. The returns are now declining very rapidly. So that the entire OECD European American model of agricultural development, which is called sometimes as industrial agriculture, is perhaps not open to us, because we can't afford to have more cancer trains coming from Bhatinda to Ludhiana. We can't have all the sprays of pesticides that we do at the moment on our crops, etc. So what is the way forward? In Niti Aayog, we have been trying now for 2 years, and we are going to persist with that, to make a transformation in Indian agriculture towards natural farming, towards agroecology, towards a chemical-free agriculture, which I think can be a successful, can be tried. We are now, I'm glad to note that the Ministry of Farmers Welfare Cooperation and Cooperation and Agriculture is now launching a centrally sponsored scheme called the Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati, which they will launch in 600 blocks, 10% of our blocks, with 2,000 hectares each, where they will experiment with what is sometimes called as Subhash Palekar natural farming, sometimes called the zero budget natural farming. But the essence of that is that we will have we will have agriculture in India which is chemical free. Now, at least 35 to 40 lakh farmers are already practicing this in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Himachal Pradesh, Gujarat, where the governor, Acharya Devbrat ji, is a great proponent of this. And he has shown and is demonstrated on his own farm in Kurukshetra in Haryana that by practicing this kind of farming, his yields increase and the organic carbon content in the soil went up from 0.2 to 0.6 over 4 years. And Hisar Agriculture University has done field studies for this. Now, I think today is the time to try this out, because in this kind of farming, the costs of inputs go down. And farmers' net income improves because yields, unlike in organic farming, do not decline. We have now, under the auspices of Niti Aayog, the ICAR has signed a memorandum of understanding with ICRAF, with the full ICRAF, to conduct a series of field studies across his universities to collect evidence on the scientific evidence on the impact and results of natural farming on chemical-free farming as we go forward. And I think this is an experiment that we must really practice, because this is one area, this is one practice of agriculture which will make sure that your water consumption declines, your soil quality improves, your weeds decrease because of natural mulching through a green cover, through intercropping with leguminous crops. And the intercropping also fixes nitrogen in the soil, where by the use of cow-based inputs, cow urine and cow dung, etc., where you trigger the growth of micronutrients in the soil, and you let the soil breathe again. You let our earth, live again, so that earthworms come back and the productivity of the soil improves by creating the humus. The most important, ladies and gentlemen, fact is that once you create the humus and you convert the soil into an organic carbon-rich soil, it starts fixing the moisture from the air. And I don't know how many of us know, but I got to know it very recently, that the moisture in the air contains 7 times the water than all of groundwater and surface water combined. And this is how rainforests lived and thrived in Brazil and in Indonesia and so on. Nobody was going there to irrigate them. Can our agriculture also become one which fixes moisture from the soil? And that will be the true climate smart agriculture that we can have. If we can reduce the amount of water that we require, if we improve the quality, if we reduce the emission of methane in our soil by the use of indigenous cow varieties, etc., I think that will be the real transformation of Indian agriculture. I therefore appeal to this very, very august audience and all the eminences gathered here. Please visit our website. You will see a lot of material on that. And I think it's time for all of us to look at a real transformation of Indian agriculture. I'm happy to tell you that the finance minister, the honorable finance minister, included this reference in her last budget speech. And the prime minister, the honorable prime minister, has now repeated this thrice in his public statements, that that's the way to go forward. So I use this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to bring to your notice that this is the way that at least Niti Aayog thinks is the way forward for Indian agriculture, to make it more productive, to make it globally competitive, and to actually bring about an increase in farmers' net income and remove the distress that the Indian farmer is facing today, while at the same time making the Indian agriculture agro-climatically friendly and agroecologically sound and superior. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a matter of pride for all of us that you are with us today and give us the guidance and very brief about the Atmanirbhar and different perspectives on behalf of NCCSD and all of us. We're thankful to you, sir. We're thankful to Honorable Justice B.P. Singh, President of NCCSD. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Amarjit Sinha, Advisor to Honorable Prime Minister, for his address. Dr. Amarjit Sinha. I request sir for his address. Now I request to Dr. Kiritan Shalat for his opening address. So,
yourself. नहीं सुनाई नहीं पड़ रहा, म्यूट पे है.
Yeah, I was on mute. Pranam to all. Justice BP Singh, President NCCSD, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog. First of all, our thanks to Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, who himself is a leading think tank. He has honored us by the book release. We have been working with Niti Aayog on agriculture and rural development. Professor Ramesh Chand is in fact our close associate. This current book is a compendium of articles by experts from different disciplines. The book looks forward. It suggests a roadmap for agriculture sector 2020-2030. In fact, our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi has visualized this by giving first a call of doubling of income of farmers, followed by call Atmanirbhar farmer, which includes Atmanirbhar farmer. Our agriculture has had sustainable growth over last several decades. We are self-sufficient. In fact, in arena of adverse climate condition and COVID pandemic, agriculture provided stable growth, unlike what happened to manufacturing sector. Food from government storage was made available by government to all those who need it, both in urban and rural area where population was in great difficulty. We are looking forward for a rapid growth in agriculture, say 10% per annum. India has second largest arable land in the world. It has largest pool of agriculture scientists and extension workers, a committed development administration, and adaptive farmers. This is backed by a great political will which has provided unprecedented financial resources and restructuring of agriculture sector by reforms and farmer-friendly measures. We have immense human resources, young farmers, rural youth, women farmers. Majority of our rural population is educated. In rural area, we have electricity in all villages and connectivity. World today in many parts is suffering from lack of food due to pandemic, due to droughts, due to social turmoil and civil war. Further, with a growing urban population, there is huge demand for processed food, food products, and of course, for dairy products, fruits, vegetables, poultry, meat, fisheries, apart from food grains, cotton, castor oil, so on and so forth. How can we convert this into a big opportunity for our farmer is immediate challenge. With industrial infrastructure, agroclimate processing units, develop road, rail, and port links, transportation, digitalization, technology and technological manpower, we have to make this happen. Agriculture, which is considered as a risky business, can become an attractive, profitable business. I briefly now summarize 4 or 5 recommendations which have come out from this book in this opening remarks. First, revamp agri program implementation by use of software and digitalization and monitoring at village level progress and have ground truth through video web link. We have wide spectrum of stream to support farmers, animal holder, fishermen, rural youth, rural women, agriculture workers, artisans. But at ground level, implementation of program is not coming up well. Second, we need to have block level and village level planning, which covers all aspects: information, market link, climate related services, efficient use of existing water resources, water harvesting, use of solar energy, credit for joint and individual economic activity, organizing producers by cooperatives and FPOs. Can we have block level and village level measuring of GDP growth? We need to monitor this such micro level plans. Third, we have to focus on individual families who are left out of development process, the poor families. This may be 10 to 20% depending on the state concern, but number is huge. They need individual attention and support as they do not seem capable of their own. due to various socio-economic reasons, including indebtedness. Fourth, examine impact of rapid economic growth and urbanization, which has impacted rural socio-economic metrics. We have rich Patels and poor Patels. We have rich tribal families and poor tribal families. In fact, within same village, with same water and land resources, one farmer makes profit, other loses, and perhaps margins. We need to just study carefully because this situation leads to discontent among rural youth and creates social unrest and social turmoil. Another suggestion is to develop climate smart villages. With expansion of Wi-Fi and 5G, rural connectivity for business, villages are on par with urban centers. COVID-19 has taught us to work from home. Can we have smart villages where urbanites migrate and stay in clean environment? We need to launch this as a major program. I conclude these opening remarks. Once again, thank Vice Chairman Niti Aayog and Dr. P.K. Mishra, who was also a great supporter of this idea of this book and wrote our foreword, and Dr. Amarjit Sinha, who is also with us and will join shortly. He is in a meeting and will join us. The book contains in-depth analysis and implementable ideas in each area by variety of experts who are also here present today. We are sure Niti Aayog will carefully examine these and take them forward for developing, making our farmers self-reliant and climate smart, who are also making them from their agriculture production activity like any other farmer a profitable agriculture business. Pranam, Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your brief address. Now I request to Dr. Govind Hariharan from the USA Kansas State University for his address. Dr. Govind Hariharan.
Thank you, Ms. Shah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shalat. Thank you, Dr. Justice B.P. Singh, Honorable Dr. Kumar. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this endeavor. I know how long Dr. Shalat has been working on saying focus on how do we develop a resilient agriculture sector in India. His passion has been a driving force behind the enthusiasm behind so many of the authors and participants in CCSD. In the midst of so many of you, very knowledgeable and esteemed academics, government officials, senior leaders, and industry leaders, I'm a bit hesitant to speak too much because my ignorance might be very noticeable. The one thing that I do know that I want to speak about for a second is the role of uncertainty. The first report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change pointed and gave specific attention to the importance of our ability to understand and address uncertainty pertaining to climate change, which becomes even more significant when one is speaking about water and when one is speaking about agriculture. Uncertainty is typically classified into three categories. You have epistemic uncertainty, which comes from a lot of imperfect knowledge. That can be addressed. And that is something that I know Dr. Shalat, for one, and many of the distinguished members here have been programs working to address. There is also aleatory or inherent or statistical uncertainty. The most important one, especially as Dr. Kumar pointed out, given the size of the very small size of the land holdings and the small farmers, as opposed to an industrialized farm sector, The third type of uncertainty is called ambiguity uncertainty. So in the case of ambiguity uncertainty, it is primarily a context wherein there are multiple ways of seeing the same thing, and therefore nobody is 100% sure, or the recipient or the farmer is not 100% sure, is this the right way, or is there an alternate way that is also right? Ambiguity results in a lot of what behavioral economists, psychologists refer to as uncertainty aversion. So people become really afraid. It causes mental health issues when there is a lot of uncertainty. The uncertainty could be with regard to income, could be with regard to weather, could be with regard to climate change. All of these have a significant impact, especially because the impact is larger on smaller farmers. Recommendations of the IPCC have typically relied on a very risk-averse precautionary principle, which argues that we should first and foremost worst possible situation and make sure that we are protected against it. The Honorable Prime Minister and Dr. Kumar and Niti Aayog have all pointed out that enhancing the income of farmers is a significant component of a successful national policy. Adopting a precautionary principle in that context forces us to choose a trade-off between economic well-being sometimes and opting for a very, very risk-averse approach to dealing with uncertainty. My point is that there are many ways in which uncertainty can be addressed. Closer look at how best to address it in the context of agriculture, in the context of smallholding agriculture, in the context of climate change, and in the context of a post-COVID world, where all of these become really, really significant factors. And thank you for allowing me to speak for a second.
Thank you so much, Dr. Govind Hariharan, for joining us. It's around 5:20 a.m. in the USA, if I am not wrong. It's too early for you, but you encourage us. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution, sir. Thank you so much. Now I request to Shri Ashwin Bhai Shroff for his address. After Ashwin Bhai, I request Dr. Richard for his address. So request Ashwin Bhai for his address. Ashwin Bhai. Ashwin Bhai maybe join very quickly, but now I request to Dr. Richard, who are with us from Ghana.
Nishaben, I am here in case you want me to speak.
Oh, Ashwin Bhai, yes. I request you for your address, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, I would like to compliment Kirit Bhai for this wonderful book on creating a more resilient farming. And we could not have found a better personality to launch the book or to inaugurate the book than Dr. Rajiv Kumar. His talk was absolutely wonderful, very, and as a personality, extremely versatile. So very, very good. So Kirit Bhai, congratulations, Dr. Shelat, and Rajiv ji, extremely nice to hear from you. And of course, I'm familiar with Dr. Kirit Shelat's work. We are all closely associated. And since climate change is one of the major thoughts that we are addressing, let me tell you how happy I am that I am at our Mundra site in Mundra Port in Kutch, where we are growing seaweeds to reverse the climate change, not merely mitigate, not merely adapt, but to reverse the climate change. And as you rightly said, the land area is limited, the farmers' acreage is limited. So we will have to look to sea and the blue economy, and also inclusive economy in which the fishermen will have to play their part. So the rural communities, the coastal communities will have to play their part. I'm in fact with the leader of the fishermen here and our chief scientist. So we are all at the site where we are growing the seaweed, and we reverse the climate change, which has been troubling. One of the most vulnerable areas is the agriculture, but it is also the solution. It is suffering from the problem, it's a victim, but it also offers the solution because photosynthesis takes away the CO2. And when you do it on a big scale, yes, the climate change will be reversed. So I'm very happy to be a participant in this whole program. And thank you, Kirit Bhai, thank you, Nishaben. And once again, very happy to hear all the wonderful speakers, but the Dr. Rajiv Kumar's thoughts were absolutely very good. Although I would suggest Rajiv Kumar that I think we have to give up part of the pessimism, and I think we are all innovative enough and optimistic enough to be able to change the picture. But thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Ashwin bhai, for your time, for your contributions. On behalf of NCCSD, we're really thankful to you, sir. Now I request to Dr. Richard for his address. He's in the Ghana and the time is around 10:30. Dr. Richard?
Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much. Good morning. Sorry, you are in the good afternoon.
Good afternoon from India and morning to you.
All protocols observed. I'm glad to be part of this program. I thank all the speakers for the educative me to be part of this program. And I have listened to everybody, and I didn't hear anything about bushfire. Bushfire is a very important factor in a fight against climate change, because one, it reduces carbon sink, it reduces the organic matter levels in the soil. I have not heard anything about. The book will give us some coverage on how we can mitigate against bushfire and then improve soil's organic matter. Now, let me share something small with you on our local climate change challenges in Ghana. Ghana depends more on climate sensitive sectors, that's agriculture, energy, and then forestry. And our vulnerability, that is to economy, is exacerbated by social and political and economic. Especially in Africa, we have problems with social and economic drivers, climate change factors. I'm sure you may not have that to that degree. In India too, I'm sure you don't have much have here. You know, the goal of Ghana's climate change fight is to enhance current and future development to climate change impacts. This we are trying to, through strengthening and building and strengthening adaptive capacity, and then building resilience of the society and the ecosystems. But these cannot be achieved without sustainable water supply. As I've heard from Dr. Kumar and then Dr. Salat, and I've forgotten the name of the other and so we are trying to increase availability of fresh water, which is very important for agriculture, domestic and then industrial purposes. And then we're also trying to enhance the skills and capacity for water resource management. That is very important. I think Dr. Kumar mentioned water resource management. If you're able to make water available and the users are not able to use it judiciously, I think that is something we have to look at. Our challenge on the ground, and I know India have a similar problem. The challenges now, the main challenge now is the breakdown of groundwater recharge system of many of our catchments or watersheds. The groundwater recharge system is broken down. This is as a result of increasing decreasing groundwater recharge areas. This is very, especially in urban residential areas. Over here, we don't have policies for water harvesting, and our design, the design of our residential areas is not followed. So it's giving us a lot of problems. We have a lot of runoff coming out from residential areas to agricultural fields and creating siltation in our water bodies. And then another issue is that the available groundwater recharge areas are losing their permeability due to poor management and use of the resource. We also have challenges in seasonal rainfall characteristics. We know rainfall is the primary resource for fresh water in all catchment areas. And then we are also facing a challenge of increasing abstraction of river and stream waters. Now, when you go to any of our streams or water bodies, you see tankers parked by extracting water for construction and other activities in the economy. So that we have increasing abstraction of water, and the fear is that very soon the abstraction quantity will be equal to the recharge quantities, and they even exceed, and that will be a very serious problem for us here in Africa, and especially in Ghana. Now we have boreholes. We sink boreholes everywhere because people are not getting the water they need for agriculture, especially for irrigation. And as we increase the number of boreholes, we are not looking at how we can increase the of the scanty rainfall, the decreasing rainfall quantity they are receiving, how we can harness them into our water bodies and then use them for agriculture and other activities. And then another issue is that our resource users, they lack the adaptive capacity to improve groundwater recharge on the farms, especially. We have serious erosion. We are losing our topsoil, and when the topsoil is gone, it will give us a negative feedback in groundwater recharge, especially on the agricultural fields. And we are trying to see how we can increase groundwater recharge. And I believe that the book, I believe the book that we are launching today will also cover how or techniques to increase groundwater recharge for future developments against climate change. Thank you very much. I don't want to talk much. Just want to share these small challenges that we have on the ground here in Ghana with you. Thank you very much for making me part of this.
Thank you, Dr. Richard, and thank you so much for your time. As usual, you always support and cooperate over each and every initiatives. Thank you so much. Now I request to Dr. A.R. Pathak. After that, I request Dr. Suresh Acharya for his address, and then Dr. Ashish Shah. So now I request to Dr. Pathak Sahib for his address. Dr. A.R. Pathak.
Thank you, Nisha Ben. Namaskar to all. Honorable President NCCSD and former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Sri Singh Sahib. Honorable Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Dr. Kirit Selath, Sri Ashwin Bhai, Dr. Hariharan, Dr. Sadamate, and Dr. C.S. Pandya, who are publisher of the book, and many other scientists who are and delegates who are here with us. First of all, let me congratulate Dr. Kirit Selath for preparing this book, a very important aspect, and also thanks the Chairman Niti Aayog to spare few hours with us and release this book for the use of our academician as well as the policy makers. First of all, the think tank meetings which were organized by Dr. Kirit Selath last year in September in Gandhinagar, in Ahmedabad, in Circuit House, in November in Delhi, wherein from Niti Aayog, Dr. Ramesh Chand was with us, and at that time it was decided that many of the good ideas are there in this presentation that should be taken up for the implementation by the government. Then our Honorable Prime Minister, who gave the call for the doubling the farmers' income and the Atmanirbhar Bharat and self-reliance agriculture, and in that, under his leadership, the series of measures have been taken to restructure the agriculture sector. Huge resources have been allotted for infrastructure and many other things to support the farmers. And in spite of that, if we see that today's agriculture, what Dr. Rajiv Kumar has told, that is on a crossroad, and many things required to be done. And he very rightly pointed out that the agriculture is not in a good shape. And though our government of India, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, has taken a lot of steps, and we hope that in future it will be corrected properly. So far as the book is concerned, there are 24 articles in different subjects covering the all areas for production, for conserving the soil, for conserving the water, utilization of water, market, linkage, credit, and everything, even women, even environment, and then extension, even in education is also being covered in this book by different experts. And in that context, that how to make the Atmanirbhar self-reliance in agriculture, and for that roadmap for 2030 has been given in this book by all the authors of these articles. And we are highly thankful to the Sharad Sahib, who very rightly taken up the lead and published this book for the users, maybe a policymakers or even a academician. This book is very much useful for the academician as well as the policymakers, how to make the agriculture in a good shape, whatever Dr. Rajiv Kumar was telling. Even what he has pointed out, that the Prakritik Kheti, and in Prakritik Kheti, yes, Gujarat has taken now lead, and all the agriculture university of the Gujarat has conducted the training programs, not only the training programs of the farmers, but the study has already been started, and many studies have now even in a good shape. Before few days, I was referring to the Andhra Pradesh report, and certainly, sir, what you pointed out, that in Andhra Pradesh, the natural farming or the Prakritik Kheti has given a good results, and many other states, Himachal Pradesh, even I have also personally seen our honorable governor sahab farm at the Kurukshetra, and we are very much now convinced with the things, and the people are now adopting in Gujarat in a big way. Many farmers have now taken up the Prakritik Kheti and reduce the cost, not only reduce the cost, but the product is also getting a more and more price because of the Prakritik Kheti. Now the people are wanting only a good material for their own use, and hence the people have even spending more for the Prakritik produce which the farmer is producing, which covers all the aspects, and in total, this book is a very nice book so far as the all aspect of and it will give up to the 2030 how agriculture, if we have to take the agriculture into 2030, then the many things have been given. Thank you very much again. Congratulations to Sharad sir, and thanks to Dr. Rajiv Kumar, and then the President Singh sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. Now I request to Dr. Suresh Acharya for his address. Acharya sir.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv ji, President NCCSD Justice BP Singh ji, Advisor Prime Minister Dr. Amarjit Sinha ji, Chairman Excel Industry Shri Ashwin Bhai, my co-authors Dr. Shailat, Dr. Embua, Dr. Pathak, ex-Vice Chancellor, Dr. N.C. Patel, and present Vice Chancellor of Junagadh Agriculture University and Anand Agriculture University, Dr. Chogatia and Dr. Byas, Dr. Sudhamate, and particularly Dr. Hariharan and Dr. Richard, who are awake at this odd hours to be part of this function. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel extremely privileged to be here with Inquest for Atmanirbharta in Agriculture. The journey of agriculture is a perfect showcase of growth that shows only one thing: its achievements are incredible, unparalleled, exemplary, and awesome. However, the flip side, as the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog said, is also equally true. It is highly problem intensive and lot needs to be done. In fact, if you see the economic reforms, the watershed economic reform were done in 90s. However, agriculture remained deprived of reforms then. The three reforms in agriculture are expected to enable agriculture for demand-driven production and market price discovery, changing dasha and disha of agriculture. When we talk about Atmanirbharta in agriculture, the obvious attention goes to two things. One, the risk and uncertainties that are indispensable in agriculture, and the available innovation-based technologies to counter them. Now, if you take the roll call of either the problems or the technologies, both have increased exponentially, and it is here that the decision making becomes the most important. Let's look at the problems first. Irrespective of latest, like COVID, locust, or the old persistent problems like water, diseases, etc., their genesis is regional, but the impact is localized. The problems are regional, and as our Vice Chairman rightly said, the action for solving or countering them needs to be community-based, community-led, community-relevant, and participatory. FPO is one alternative for that to make them good farmer, a good buyer, and good seller. Many technologies are available. Some of them are pragmatic, others are exorbitantly expensive, while still others are totally empirical. Therefore, some Atmanirekshan or self-appraisal is required, like whether the intended technologies meet the local needs with a global vision. No-cost technology like seeding time and seed rate, or low-cost technology like microbial seed treatment look very trivial, but could be pivotal for seeking Atmanirbharta. We have done experiment at Kutch, zero tillage, and selection of appropriate crop is also very important. Technologies need not to be very big or expensive. Even a small technology pinpointed on the precise needs of local farmers can do wonders. Only yesterday, we were listening to a farmer from district Bhavnagar, Gujarat, that he earned rupees 2.5 lakh in 5 months by adopting a low-cost technology called Bhabi Vermiwash model with a meager investment of rupees 4,000. Agriculture has huge losses and wastages unknown in the other sector. Had it been any other occupation, the farmer would have left long back due to recurring losses. Can the adversities be converted into opportunities to initiate value addition chains in such a way that every waste in agriculture becomes an invaluable input for a value-added output from the next chain? Today's attendance in this meeting from different walks of the life clearly indicate that agriculture is no more a story of subsistence, famines, hunger, and merely food production. It is getting more inclusive, multi-layered, and multifunctional, starting from the farm field and ending at pepping up all important life-supporting ecological services, and climate change is also included in that. Beginning in this direction has already started, and I'm sure with enriched value addition chain and due garnishing with vocal for local would make agriculture consummately Atmanirbhar in true sense. I again thank Dr. Shailat for giving me this chance to be a part of this author team, and all who are present here, and Nisha ma'am for giving me the opportunity to share my views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya. Now I request Dr. Ashish Shah for his address. After that, I request to Dr. R.V. Vyas and Dr. V.P. Chovatia Sai for his address. So now I request to Dr. Ashish Shah.
Thank you, Nisha Madam. Good afternoon to all. Respected Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Shri Rajiv Kumar ji, Justice BP Singh ji, our host of today's event, Dr. Kirit Shelat Bhai, and the entire team of NCCSD, Dr. Ashwin Bhai Shroff, and all other dignitaries. It's my pleasure to be part of this book launch, Atmanirbhar, Self-Reliant and Climate Smart Farmers, Roadmap for Agriculture, 2022 to 2030. The topic that I have contributed pertains to artificial intelligence and machine learning. As I belong to computer science and technology is my field. So that is what is my contribution for this book. I have been writing a lot of blogs and other policy issues through my portal Samanvay. So that is how I try to put up my contribution. Both AI and machine learning are touted as the top trending technology, not only for today, but for at least 10 years from henceforth. So the usage of AI and machine learning is increasing by the day. Since this is a very brief presentation, so I will just touch upon 2 points that I would like to highlight here. So the first is, of course, that AI apps, AI as well as ML apps are increasing, and almost all the sectors are being served through these 2 technologies, and that includes your agriculture also, as well as many other related fields. So in fact, one of the best example of your AI apps technologies, OneSoil. OneSoil is a company, AI-based company. It's a startup basically, which was formed in the year 2017 in Minsk, Belarus. And the initial funding for this company was around $1.5 million. And later on, it received further funding. The company is making excellent progress in the field of how AI as well as machine learning language can be used to boost productivity as well as to facilitate better farming for the small as well as middle range of farmers. So what it does is it collects macro as well as micro level data across the world, and that is a live and continuous process. And then it collects all this data and uses its own AI as well as ML algorithms, and it produces output which is then passed on to these farmers who subscribe to their services. So the subscription rates are also like around 200 rupees per annum. And for that, the farmers receive a lot of information. So information in the sense that the type of soil, how much fertilizer is to be given. And you see, this is continuously supervised and monitored. So it is not that for this year, if I am giving certain inputs, so that will remain constant. So that is the beauty of this company, that it continuously monitors and it changes its output to the farmer. So moisture, weather, fertilizer, seeds. So a lot of information is passed. So this is a very good example of how AI can be used for your farming sector. As our Honorable Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog has pointed that agriculture, despite having so much manpower and other things does not contribute much to the GDP. So it's almost around 17 to 18%, which has been stagnant for quite some time. And therefore, we need more productivity in this area, and that can come only through more technological applications and use of better techniques. So that is one point that I would like to highlight. Second, I'm also quite means it's really good that Kirit Bhai has brought these 5 recommendations, out of which one of the recommendation is to take things at the block level. I think that is very essential, because what is happening is a lot of policy issues, they happen at the central government level or at the state level, but it takes time, or it doesn't reach at the block level, which should be the ideal case. So this is a very excellent initiative by Dr. Kirit Bhai Shelat to bring this point as part of his recommendations. So this is the first point. The second point I wanted to highlight is the role of startups. As we are aware that Honorable PM Narendra Bhai Modi has given a lot of thrust to startups, and it's a reality and it's a very practical thing to happen to India. Without startups, the country vast resources as well as the brain that is available here in the country, without startups it cannot be utilized fully. So I think startup is the way forward to really transform the country. But unfortunately, what is happening is that most of the startups, like they have 2 or 3, two basically form of investment. One comes from the public and government, and the other comes from private sectors. Normally, private sector doesn't put much money into startups for obvious reasons. So startups have to look for public as well as government funding. In fact, I don't know, but it's a fact that the electric vehicle company Tesla has received around $500 million US from government funding as part of its initial seed funding. So, and today it's it's a top company in the world. So public as well as government funding is very essential for the new startups. And if we see the present data, China and Germany, both these countries are giving special thrust to startups, and that is happening through your public and government funding. So there is another example that European Union has also funded 64 very promising startups, and the total funding is in millions of euros, which will be available to these 64 promising startups. And this startups cover almost all areas. It's into waste management, it's into farming, it's into many mosquito to identify mosquitoes, and so there are many areas in which these startups have come up. So because this is such a good opportunity to directly interact with NITI Aayog and all other experts. So my request as a second point will be to, although the government and has been doing a lot for startups, there is a cell in NITI Aayog also which looks after these startups and all these things. But still we have to boost further funding for this, and so that will be my second point for this today's meeting. With that, I will stop here, and thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kirit Bhai Shelat and the entire team of NCC-SD. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish, for your address. Before I talk, before I said Ari Vyasa, we have Abhay Bhai also from the Giant Agro, and the Principal Secretary, Dr. Manish Bhardwaj is with us. So I would like to say Manish Bhardwaj ji for the few words. Manish Bhardwaj ji. Sir. Abhay Bhai.
I would like to thank Dr. Shailat for bringing out these books regularly and on the climate change factor, and I really appreciate that, and I think it is going to go a long way for Indian farming community. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Abhay. We always get your support and cooperation. Thank you so much. Now I request to Dr. Vyas Sayak for his address. Dr. R.B. Vyas.
Thank you, Nisaben. I'm audible, okay?
Yes, sir.
So good afternoon to one and all. I'm very happy to join with you today in this book release function, and also an author for a chapter in this book. Our aim is to make Atmanirbhar farmer and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And as per the slogan of Modi ji, we have to go ahead fast. And in this decade, we have to achieve this. And to achieve this, the first milestone we have conquered, that is this book and release of this book today. As per my opinion, I have 2 points. First is we have to reduce the cost of cultivation of the farmer by technological advancement from the university. Either it is crop production or crop protection, and farmers should produce maximum. So that should be our first aim, which we have very well covered in this book in different chapters. And second aim is farmers should get best price. And after having so many trouble fighting with all the biotic, abiotic stresses, once they have produced a good or harvested a good thing from their farms, either it is fruits, cereals, vegetables, whatever it is, but they should get best price. So if we can concentrate on these two in this decade, I'm sure that as per the our Modi ji's ahvan about Atmanirbhar Bharat and India, we will be able to do it, and we can also double the farmers' income. In the same points, I would like to say that Anand Agriculture University has a basket of some biopesticide, bio fertilizers, and some of the traditional wisdom base, many produces, which we have already given to the farmers, and we are promoting all this to the farming community in a big way in the Gujarat state. But it should be across the country to reduce the cost of cultivation, and at least 25 to 50% of the chemical input should be reduced in our agro ecosystem. And for that, we have to work very hard in this decade. Second thing is, as per the Rajivji's comment, that agriculture sector is giving a lot of greenhouse gases, and especially methane emission is there from the wetland paddy. For that also, Anand Agriculture University has one very good remedy. We have got some lead how to reduce the methane emission from the wetland paddy and sugarcane and other crops. And I can say that with tiny microbes, and there's a consortium of the bacteria has been developed. If you can charge that bacteria in the soil, it can reduce the methane emission of about 8 to 10%, and also save the fertilizer input by 20%. So such thing we have to promote, and using the help of microbes, we have to go for bio-CNG and bioethanol production. And with this all techniques, new technologies, which we have to promote to the farmers and to the society, to ultimately getting this target to be achieved. Second thing is, once the produce is ready by the farmer, the need is farmers should get maximum or best price. And for that, the most important move right now in the country is the formation of FPOs. About 10,000 FPOs to be formed across the country. So small and marginal farmers, once they will unite, they will get best price. And with that better price and having the direct marketing system, they can earn more and they can double their income. And one last point I would like to highlight is the contract farming and demand-based production by the farmers. And if farmer will be diverted in this direction, and they will start doing some export also in a consortium based or in a sector based, I think our aim of Atmanirbhar Bharat will be definitely achieved, and whatever we have put in different chapters in this book will be successful in the country. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vyas. Now I request to Dr. V.P. Chovatia. After that, I request Dr. Shankar. We have Professor Dr. Manushi, Dr. N.C. Patel, Professor Seema, and Professor Niti Mehta also. So if they would like to share, first I share their experience. I request them also. But first, I would like to request Dr. Chovatia for his address. Dr. Chovatia.
Thank you, Nisaben.
Thank you, sir.
The President of NCCSD, Honorable Justice B.P. Singh Sahab, Vice President, Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Honorable Rajiv Kumar Sahab, Honorable Dr. Salat Sahab, Dr. Hariharan, Dr. Bhardwaj Sahab, Honorable Dr. Pathak Sahab, Dr. N.C. Patel Sahab, Dr. Sadamate Sahab, and all the participants. We know that the Earth's climate has constantly been changing even long before human existence. However, an unusual rate of change has been noticed in last few decades. Beyond a certain range of temperature, warming tends to reduce yields because crops speed through their development, producing less grain in the process. Global warming could lead to an increase in the pest and insect population. New insect pests attacking the crop, which harming the yields. Insects that previously had only 2 breeding cycles per year could gain an additional cycle if the warm growing season extend, causing the population boom in the field itself. The biggest consequence of climate change on the dispersal of pathogen is that the geographical distribution of host and pathogen could shift, which would result in more crop losses. Change in crop phenology provide important evidence of the response to the recent regional climate change. Global warming has also become a reality in India. The increase in mean temperature by 0.3 to 0.6 degrees centigrade per decade since in 1860s across India indicates the significant warming due to the climate change. Research confirms that every rise of 1 degree centigrade temperature throughout the growing period will decline 4 to 5 million tons of wheat production in India. The present monsoon in Gujarat has given a hint in future threats of global warming on agriculture. This year, more than 150% of rainfall was recorded in Saurashtra and our state, with continuous heavy rain in late Kharif at the harvesting phase of major crops. As a result, many parts of the region suffered from yield loss and also soil erosion. Such scenario was not evident in the region since last many years. In future, the extreme event like flood, drought, extremely cold, extremely heat, cyclones, and change in the weather cycle will be witnessed. Therefore, future challenges will be more complex and demanding. So it is our pleasure to note that today Dr. Salat Sahab has released a book, Atmanirbhar, Self-Reliant and Climate Smart Farmer, Roadmap for Agriculture 2020 to 2030 India. This book will help the significant scientific community, policymakers and farmers have to reframe the conventional strategies and policies to help the agriculture sector and strengthen our economy. I congratulate Honorable Dr. Salat Sahab and team of NCCSD adding one more feather in the cap. I am sure that It will help us to move towards direction of the Atmanirbhar Krishi. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Chaudhary sir, for your address. I request Dr. Shankar for a brief address, then NC Patel sir for the few words, Manushi, Professor Seema, and Professor Niti Mehta. So first, I request Dr. Shankar for a few words.
Thank you, Shah Madam. At the outset, respected President of the HCCDS, Dr. J.P. Singh Saab, and Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar Saab, and my respected and most beloved Kirit Saab, and you, and also the distinguished galaxy of scientists who are assembled for this program. I have a privilege and thank all the members to giving this opportunity to me to address you all at this age. The book entitled is exemplary, and as pointed out by the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, all the answers are there in this book. This book is a source of convergence of the line department in answering the farmers' issues in the respective fields of organization. Especially, it may be on the water management, nutrient management, education, or the cost reduction or doubling the income. The book, 24 chapters which have been written by the distinguished scientists, clearly open up the way for the farmers, policy makers to adopt these policies in solving the problems of the local people. The book also gives an answer to our chairman, Khilar Saab, who wants to have the developmental area in the strengthening the district level plans. So this book is definitely a roadmap for sustaining the productivity in last perspective. I thank the organizers for giving this opportunity. Thank you one and all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shankar. Now I request to Dr. NC Patel for the few words. NC Patel sahib.
Namaskar, Honorable President of the NCCSD, Justice BP Singh Saab, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, all the Honorable Vice Chancellors, dignitaries, and outside, all the learned authors. In fact, I did not think that I'll be given time to speak, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I'll quickly finish because we have been listening many experts and few more are there in line. As said by previous speakers, almost all the topics have been included in the book, including the artificial intelligence and machine learning. We heard Dr. Shah also. Now time has come that whatever has been mentioned in the book at different levels, the inferences will have to be drawn, including the policy makers, that what kind of policy at central level and state level up to the block level is to be implemented. Implementation part is very critical. Lot of scientific work, research has been done by universities, including the ICR centers and institutes. Now those research is to be taken down the line. There are people, and wherever the gaps are there, now probably more and more IT use we'll have to do it. Okay. Then next would be how to get maximum out of it. Whatever agricultural productions are there, we have been listening that major part, especially for fruits and vegetables, to the tune of about 45 to 50% it goes as a post-harvest losses, starting from harvesting to till it reaches to the table. How can we really come out of it? So the option is process it right in the vicinity of the productions so that there is no post-harvest loss practically, and the value-added products can be developed, prepared. That too, it should be of international quality as per Kodak standards. So that, I mean, there is a market for that, domestic as well as export market also. And there will be opportunity for the rural people to have employment right in the villages. So instead of villagers running from village towards the city, finding the job and then creating issues in the cities, all that kind of things would be reduced. Our experience when I was at Junagadh Agriculture University, through the ICR schemes, post-harvest technology centers, model agro-processing centers, that if the farmers cooperatives are formed And if the agricultural commodities are processed, the farmers who are not members of the societies also get minimum 30% rise in their income. So there are such models, successful models. What is required is to take them to different, sectors, different crops and different areas of our country for the benefit of farmers. And that is going to help really, in addition to number of other sectors, horticulture, animal husbandry and all that. This is very important component. Whatever has been produced has to be processed to the fullest extent so that the wherever gap is existing, that needs to be bridged. With this word, I thank you all for your patient listening. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. N.C. Patel Sahib. Now I request to Professor Manushi. Would like to speak few words, Professor Manushi? Manushi from Assam.
Yes, a very good afternoon. Namaskar. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, respected President NCCDS and Executive Chairman, as well as Vice President Niti Aayog. I am very thankful for the whole team. All the learned member has spoken very well and highlighted the content of the book and the need of the hour. So I'm very thankful for making me a part of it, and I'm honored to be working with this team. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to work with you. And of course, I would like to mention Dr. Sadamate, who also deserves a great lot of thanks and acknowledgement because he has linked me to Dr. Kirit Shillard and Nisha Madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Manushi. Now I request Professor Seema Atala for her address. Professor Seema.
Hi, everybody. I don't have to say much except that, it seems to be a very interesting work. It has covered all the aspects which I've heard, from all the participants. And my heartiest congratulations to you and Dr. Shillard for working hard on this issue. And I look forward to reading this, piece of work with great interest. And I must say that you should, try for its wider dissemination so that it doesn't remain in, your office. Thank you so much. And thank you for sending the link and making me part of this, important event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Seema. Now I request to Professor Niti Mehta for a few words. Professor Niti Mehta. Professor Niti Mehta. Niti Mehta's mic is not on. Anyway, now I request to Dr. Sadamate for the vote of thanks and concluding remarks. In very brief, sir. I request Dr. Sadamate.
Cover for it. Yeah, thank you, Nishana. Am I audible? Outset, let me thank profusely, to the Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar ji, for having agreed to, release this very important publication brought out by NCCSD. And in his opening remark, he made it, very, very clear that agriculture has a huge challenge. And, what he mentioned was, very, very clear. And there are 3 or 4, very important points. One is, empowerment of the farmers. Then, maintaining balance of our natural resources. I think that was a very clear message. Third is, how the agriculture could be, modernized with a greater focus on, income, business orientation, so on and so forth. And he has, expressed a very equal concern of, agro-eco-based, models. You may call them as a natural farming, or you may call them as a prakritik kheti, or by any other name. But the focus was on how to maintain, the natural balance while getting, more and more, from Mother Earth. I must, thank, Justice B.P. Singh sir, our Honorable President of the NCCSD, and sir, you have been always, great support to our team. We enjoy, working under your patronage, and your guidance has been always, very fruitful and useful to us. I must, bring it, to kind notice of everyone, and Dr. Shalat sir particularly, that, before me and Brijesh entered, Honorable Vice Chairman's, chamber, he says that, he has already glanced, a couple of topics. And very clearly he says and pointed out that, Sadamati, what is the fate of, agricultural extension? Because there is research, there is technology, but how the transmission is taking place? Then, I, brought, to his kind notice our, chapter number 16, where we have talked about how to reform our extension, empowering farmer, bringing more of, business orientation agriculture, more of ICT, so on and so forth. So he said, he will run through that topic once again, and then, call me, and maybe, me and Dr. Shalat sir can, come back and see how the extension services can be, improved further. Incidentally, he said again, for information of Honorable President and Shalat sir, I mentioned to Honorable Vice Chair that Sadamati is conducting a quick evaluation of KVK programs, and he was very much excited. He said that Sadamati, I want some recommendations on this whole gamut of extension. Having said that, Dr. Kirit Shalat sir again his address pointed out very important issues, like many issues, but Shalat sir's point was block extension plans or block agriculture plans, and how to make things happen on agriculture little proactively at the block level and the cluster level. I think that is the issue which I joined Dr. Shalat sir, and that is what will matter most. Otherwise, in terms of the principles and priorities and policies, enough is available, but getting it translated into action is serious challenge. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Vice Chair Niti Aayog was equally concerned about the small farms and climate mitigation strategies, etc. I thank profusely Govind Hariharan, the friend of best friend of our NCCSD, and he mentioned about how to make the small farmers viable, and how to bring in income concerns and income orientation to agriculture, particularly in the developing countries. Thank you, Hariharan sir. Then I must record our sincere thanks to Amarjit Sinha Sahab, advisor to Honorable Prime Minister. Because of other engagement, I believe he was not able to make it. Address, very brief address by Ashwin Bhai was very clear. His message was, let us reverse the climate action and climate impact, because that itself is a big challenge, because so many things are happening. But how to make it reverse? And Ashwin Bhai is very, very proactive, supporter of our cause, NCCSD's cause always. Then I thank Richard from Ghana, then Dr. Pathak, Dr. Acharya, Dr. Ashish, Secretary Food and Cooperation Government of Gujarat, Vice Chancellor Anand, Vice Chancellor Junagadh, my good friend Shankar, Yanti Patel Sahab, Manushri, Seema, and others. The clear-cut message is, okay, things are available on the plate. but how to integrate that into the action. And there, Dr. Shelat sir's idea, matters most. And how to make the things happen at the block level. And Honorable Vice Chairman sir has very briefly mentioned that Krishi Bhavan and Niti Aayog are working on 600 blocks. Perhaps we'll request Dr. Shelat sir and our President BP Singh sir to see if we can open a dialogue at appropriate level at Krishi Bhavan and Niti Aayog and be a part of their mission in some of the blocks. I must thank profusely Viresh Shelat, who has been very active for the last couple of days in organizing this event, and we also thank Madam Meera, from Deputy Chairman's office and their support staff, who have extended all possible cooperation, and I may not have mentioned all those who have spoken, but NCDC, NCCSD is leading this climate smart agriculture movement. Dr. Shelat and Dr. BP Singh are there to support us, and with all your cooperation, we will try to be a part of Krishi Bhavan's and Niti Aayog's mission. Finally, I thank one and all, and especially our Nisha Madam, who is great CEO of this great organization. I thank all support staff of Niti Aayog, those who have organized this, facilitated organizing this event. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all. Nisha ma'am, yes, back to you to conclude. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And thanks for this opportunity. Yeah.
On behalf of CCSD, because you always help in the summary, conclusions, and votes of thanks. So I always feel like the service with us. So we are now happy. So thank you so much, sir, for your all support and contributions as usual, sir.
Then you have national anthem on the board. I believe there's a meeting in the agenda. There is a national anthem also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I think we end this book release, and now I request all, and thanks to each and every participants who contribute, and especially thanks to our Executive Chairman Dr. Shelat, and special thanks to our President Justice BP Singh Sahib, who joined with us today. Thank you so much to everyone, the family members who joined this event. I'm thankful to each and every family members also. Now I request all for the national anthem.
They should play it on that rather than singing it.
Jana Gana Mana
Vinayak Jaya Hai
Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Dravida Utkala Banga Ujjala Jaladita
Yamuna Ganga Ujjala Jaladita Tava Shubha Ashish
Janagana Mangala Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He.
Thank you so much.
So we'll just song like this. It went on very well.
Yes, sir.